Okay, I think it's about time we get started here. And so we want to thank everyone for tuning in today as we're going to talk about working remotely. And so we've got some things to talk about, hopefully some good tips that you can take with you after we're done today. So hello and welcome. My name is Eddie Prue. I'm the Business Development Manager for SAF. And we're going to talk about some things today, how to work well outside of the office and keep your company data safe from the bad guys. So hopefully after today, you'll have a little bit more information on how to do that. And with us on the call is our CEO, Antonio Went. So I'm going to ask him to say hello to everyone here if he wants to join in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Antonio Went. Thanks for joining us today. We have a lot of good content for you for remote workers. Hoping to help everyone out as they transition from working in a standard corporate environment to a remote home working environment. Done a lot of good job pulling some information in for you guys, and excited to present it to you. So awesome. Let's go ahead and hand it back over to Eddie.
Cool. It's great to have Antonio with us. He's got a wealth of knowledge about all the things that we're going to cover today, and we will be having a Q&A session with Antonio at the end. So if there's anything that you come up with as we're going through, be sure to write them down or save them or think about them as we get through the end. And Tony and I will both be here so that we can answer those questions for you. So here's a little slide about SAF and kind of what we are, a company that we are. We're a managed service provider for IT. We are SOC 2 Type 2 audited. And we specialize in the small to mid-sized businesses where we take enterprise class technology and incorporate that into the small and medium-sized businesses. And so we really like to think of ourselves as your company's IT department if you don't have one. If you're a company that maybe wanted to hire an IT company or not sure about that, we a lot of times take the place of that role. And we're here 24/7, 7 days a week, and with our help desk, and it's worked well for the clients that we serve. And really one of the statistics that we're most proud of is that we've got a 95% retention rate amongst our customers. And so our customers seem to be really happy with the level of service that we provide, and that really makes us feel great at SAF. One area that we really concentrate on and that we shine in is in that area of compliance. If you're a company that needs that, we really work to ensure that clients are compliant. And that could be anything from HIPAA or, in medical, SEC, if you're in financial, or Sarbanes-Oxley's, really any of that stuff. That SOC 2 audit that we go through every year really checks a lot of those boxes for those people that are in some level of compliance. We can really get them on the road to compliance in a short amount of time. So again, hopefully you had a chance to kind of read some of the other stuff that we do here at SAF, service administration, some of the things I talked about right here. And when it comes to our technology partners, here's a group of our trusted partners that we use at SAF. There's literally thousands of vendors and tools that are out there that you can use to accomplish a particular goal. The companies that we work with tell us all the time that this is a great list. These are some of the best out there, and we've gone through and standardized this whole conglomerate of solutions into different ways to meet the needs of our customers, and it's really created a great experience for our customers. So for today, like I talked about, we're gonna touch on the things when it comes to working from home. There's a lot more people working from home in home offices and things of that nature. So we got together and we're like, you know what, we need to put some information out there on how people can do that a little better and a little more safe. So the agenda for today is going to be three main parts: maintaining control of that company data and why that's important. The threat vectors, the ways that the bad guys are getting in, we'll talk about that. And then really the main one is your role as an employee or an employer, and the things that you can do to protect yourself. And we'll spend most of our time on that one. So what can we do to make sure employees can be productive, safe, and efficiently from home. You know, as we know, remote work has some proven benefits like increased productivity, employee satisfaction goes up, but there's also an increased security risk when it comes to working from home. Employees that are remotely accessing their company's network and their data have potential exposures that they just normally wouldn't have at their normal office. So if you're a company or employee struggling in this new work environment, you know, don't worry. You're not alone. We're all going through this together, as they say, and we're here to help. COVID-19 and remote working. This is really the topic for today. And I found some statistics about COVID-19 relating to working from home. And they say that 3.2% of the workers were working from home before COVID-19 impacted us. And that 44% of the companies that are out there, they didn't even allow remote working. But with all of this that's going on, it's caused more of a switch to that remote worker. And there's no question that this pandemic is going to have some lasting effects on businesses as they in the future. Many companies are finding out that they are able now to have remote employees where they really didn't think they could before, and they're really starting to discover that. So 25 to 30% of the workforce after COVID-19 is projected to work on multiple days by the end of 2021. And you know, some companies are even seeing that they're able to have this remote workforce, and they're opting to ditch the brick and mortar altogether, seeing that they can be productive and safe and all of the things by having that remote workforce. So we want to take a little poll here, and we'll have a few of these as we go today. So I'm going to launch the poll, and it just asks, you know, how many days per week would you work from home if you were able? So on 1 through 5, and I'll just give a few seconds here for us to go through, and you can check. I see them coming in there. That looks good. And then once we're through with this, we will I'll show the results. These polls are kind of fun to see, just kind of, and it gives us information too on the number of people that are you know, wanting to work from home. Okay, let's put an end on that. It's a pretty even split there of everyone. So we've got about a quarter of everybody wants to work between 1 and 4 days. So I guess if I were the tiebreaker, I would say I'm going to go with a 3-day work in the office. I like to get in the office and see my coworkers, but you also have that time outside. So it won't let me vote. So you'll have to just know that I would be a 3-day office worker. So. Oh, there we go. There's our results. Okay, those are kind of fun. Okay, so maintaining control of your company data and assets, and let's talk about this and how we can do that. Think of a few reasons that it's important to protect your company's information. What information about your company or even your customers could be just sitting there waiting for the bad guys to access? You know, this is really the stuff that keeps decision makers and CEOs up at night worrying where that sensitive information is sitting and how safe it really is. That information getting into the wrong hands can literally put a company out of business. And I'm not even kidding there. I've got some statistics on that later. Why are small businesses targets? We'll spend some time on this. Why do we think? You know, of organizations of less than 250, we've got some statistics on this. 1 in 6 users were targeted. And that's of a company of only 250 people. So, and if we go up to some of the larger companies of 2,500, that ratio only increased to 1 in 11. So by far, those companies of less than 250 people, those small businesses, have the highest ratio of targeted attacks. And so and we'll talk about that, about why that is here in just a second. And so I've got another chart here that shows about small businesses. It says that 58% were classified as small businesses that had to go through an attack. The number of cyber attacks is just only going to increase. And what makes that number what will make that number increase is that the number of remote workers during the COVID-19, where those workers are not protected as well. Another reason that smaller businesses are targeted is due to a lot of times they are working with larger companies that might have more of an attractive reason for these hackers to want to target the smaller companies to get access to that larger company. A while back, we all heard about one of the biggest companies, big retail company in the United States that had a breach of customer data. And that data was breached through a subcontractor, a small company that big company worked with. So it does happen, and it's a big deal. So if you're a small company, don't think that your information is not important, and we'll talk about that. So some of the other main reasons why small businesses are targeted is that they have a smaller budget. They may have inexperienced IT personnel on the staff. They have maybe older hardware without the newest software upgrades. And a big one that we see here is that small businesses just think that they're safe if they have up-to-date antivirus. Not the case with the cheap version that comes on your new computer or something that you might get free off of the web. And we'll talk more about that as we go as well, because that's an important one. For whatever reason, many businesses think that that a breach isn't going to happen to them. So it's never happened in the past, and so they think, well, I'm safe. I've got up-to-date antivirus on my computer. I'm good. And that data that they have is just not important to anyone. That's a big misnomer, because what you may think is not important could be vitally important to utilize from a hacker. Then they also may not take into consideration the importance of training the employees to protect that information. Really, the employees or those workers at home are really the gatekeepers of all of that information, and it's important that that data stays safe when it leaves the office and goes into a home office environment. Cybercrime on the dark web. Now, I've got a couple of things here. I added this one slide here about how it's on the rise and how many billions of dollars that it's going to cost year to year. Are we all familiar with what ransomware is? About how they'll get into your computer, they'll encrypt your files, they'll send you a message, and then want that usually in Bitcoin because it's not traceable, and they'll put a demand on the keys to unencrypt your files. And so what happens is you're going to either be forced to pay it, or you're going to have to try to struggle through it, or your data is going to be lost for good. You may have to go through backups, things of that nature. And even if your company has cyber insurance, a cyber breach is going to be very costly when you account for things like your downtime, your reputation that's damaged, loss in revenue, and a whole list of other things. So this article that I've got shown here shows that last year, the average ransomware demand was $36,000. Now, I don't know if your company can withstand a $36,000 hit. Me personally, if I'm running a company, I don't want to just give $36,000 away. And depending on what my company is, it might be significantly more. And what makes it worse is that the new spin on these ransomware attacks is that whether or not you pay the ransom, they have your information. They often spend 6 months or more within that network gathering your information, trying to thwart your backup, so that when they encrypt your files and send you that notice, they've already got your information. And so what they'll do with that information is take it and sell that on the dark web. Whether or not you pay the ransom or not, they've got that information. And if that's a way for them to make more money, you better know they're going to do it. So the idea here is everything that we're talking about to say safe working remotely is to make it so that these things don't happen in the first place. And so proactively managing your technology is so important, and that's what we do at SAF for our companies. Another poll. Let's take a look at this one. And okay. So this poll, which of the following has the greatest impact on a business if their files get encrypted with a ransomware attack? So we've got, is it going to be the loss of revenue, the having to pay the ransom itself, uncertainty if the business insurance will cover the loss, or bringing those criminals to justice? You know, this is one of those answers that I'll just tell you right now. These are all relevant when it comes to ransomware. And so just give a few more seconds here for us to answer. Okay, we've got some all over on all the answers. And okay, I'm going to share the results. Okay, so here we can all see. We've got 75% says that they say that paying that ransom itself is going to be the biggest hit. Now, that's true. That's going to be a tough one. With this poll, it could be any one of them based on the type of company that you are and what the ransomware really was and how much you can withstand it. One that really goes under the radar is that first one, the loss of revenue from downtime. If you think of not only are you paying the ransom, the time it's taken for your employees that they aren't even working. That can be, if you have a business where you're making you're bringing in a lot of money each day and you can't do business, that could potentially be more expensive than the ransomware itself. And that's something that, you know, there's a company that we worked with here recently that had a security breach, had ransomware on their system, and they were down for, I think, was it 9 or 10 days, Antonio? They had a real tough time with things by the time they got their computers back up. And then the information that they had, they don't know where it went. So it was really a start over thing for them. And so those are the kinds of things that we don't want to see. Uncertainty if the business insurance will cover loss. You know, insurance, when it comes to insurance, as a business, you really got to take a look at your cyber insurance. A lot of times it's really one of those things that they just kind of add on and say, well, you've got X amount of cyber insurance, and you maybe feel good with that. But one thing to consider is that when you get a ransomware attack, they're not going to ask for US dollars. They're going to ask for something in Bitcoin. And I would say most insurance companies do not cover Bitcoin payments. So talk to your insurance person. I've got some great references and some great referrals for people that are in cyber insurance that I could, if you have any questions about that, I can get you some information on that and to see if your policy has coverage for a Bitcoin ransomware. But hopefully, if we go through the stuff that we're going to talk about today, that we won't even have to deal with that, and that's the goal. So. Okay. So now we want to create your office from your main office, and we want to take that office and we want to put it in your home office. So it's a good idea to take a photo of everything at your main office, so that once you get home, you can see how everything is hooked up and how to plug everything back in. You may want to think about, you know, if you're going to be doing video conferences like Skype or Zoom, which we're on. Pay attention to the background. I've got a fun little virtual background that we've set up, and those work good. So you want to make sure that your background is looking good, professional, and always a good idea to dress the part. If you're working during work hours, always good to get up and start your day in your home office just as you were if you were going to go into your regular office. So dress the part, look presentable. Especially when you're doing those things like video conferencing. Unpredictability of network performance at home is one that we've all got to consider. You know, things like microwave ovens, Wi-Fi interference, slow home internet modems, and just really a bunch of other things. You know, all people that want to be on the internet all at the same time are all going to impact your performance. Even at SAF, we have a morning meeting, and Antonio could speak to this too firsthand, but we all got to witness when everyone wanted to be on the internet at the same time as we were doing our meeting. It caused some slowness, and it caused a few issues for us even. So it's something that can happen, and it was, you know, we talk about these things all the time, and now that we're all working from home and even our own company meetings, we experienced it. So it's something to definitely be aware of. If people are streaming movies, or you got kids that are playing video games and surfing the internet, that takes up a ton of bandwidth. And so that's going to impact things. Collaborative video meetings, like the one we're on, will certainly uncover areas of poor performance in a home office. So the big key takeaway here is just know, be mindful of these things and know that there's a lot of things that can go wrong when it comes to technology at your home, where you may not have to deal with those at your normal office.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that the issue that happened with me was my son was doing a packet education collaboration for his school, and those packets were given higher priority on the internet than my packets. So he was in a chat stream collaborating with all of his schoolmates, and our team session really suffered from it. So sharing that home bandwidth, understand that education packets and education-based learning network is going to get higher priority than probably your Zoom or your other meetings that are going on in your network.
Sure. Great point. Not all information is treated the same. And because the internet providers know that there's so many people working from home, they know that there's certain industries that need to have priority when it comes to those things getting through in a good way. So just like Antonio was saying, educational things, things that have to do with medical and that sort of stuff, even if you're on the same network, those things are going to potentially impact the other things and happen to be our meetings. So. Understanding the threat vectors. How are the bad guys getting in, whether it's phishing or unpatched software, poor passwords, all that stuff. I mean, this is a good little list of 9 things that we're going to talk about more as we go. And so this is just a good little outline of how they're doing it. Protecting yourself, your family, and employer. So let's take a look at why cybercrime is exploding, and let's see what we can do to help prevent it. Your company is relying heavily upon you to keep their information safe while you're working remotely. The best thing you can do to help this is to keep your personal and your company information separate. Allowing company information to be kept and stored on personal devices exposes both you and your employer to tremendous risks. Many times companies have policies surrounding this. So if you're someone that's putting company information on, whether it's your phone or work tablet or even your home computer, be aware that that mix of information might be a violation of your company's policy. And some other reasons that it's a good idea to not do that have to do with lost or stolen devices. If you've got company information on your personal device, if your regular phone gets stolen and it's got company information, that puts your company at risk. Or if you're an employee that's leaving the company, certainly your company doesn't want to have you taking sensitive information with you when you leave. Or if you've got a device that's not encrypted, where that information could be readily available to anyone that were to get on that device, or if it were lost. Those are just a few things on why you'd want to keep those things separate. Keep your work and your personal information apart. Here's a fun little checklist it's not always fun if you're the one that gets attacked, but these are the things to look out for that we've got at SAF. I can get you a copy of this if anybody's interested in a checklist to make sure that your home office is safe and secure. I can certainly get you a copy of this, and we'll go into some of these a little bit more in depth. Having the most updated version of your operating system and all your applications is arguably one of the best things that you can do to help prevent a hacker from getting onto your computer. As software ages, hackers find new ways to potentially exploit that software. Those engineers that work at those companies are constantly trying to combat this and coming up with new security patches so that they can push those out when you do updates. So be sure to do those updates, because those patches for the security issues come with those. And here's a screenshot of a PC and a Mac, and screens associated with doing updates. This one on a PC, where you just check for updates, and it'll tell you if you have the most current version of the operating system. This one being a Mac, do the same sort of thing, do a check for your software updates. Once you go through the process, it'll give you a little screen, maybe something like this, that says that your Mac is up to date to the newest version of the of Catalina. Let's talk about antivirus and anti-malware. I touched on this a little bit earlier. We always recommend that you have a paid subscription-based antivirus program. Reason being that they have customer support included and have a much higher level of security over those free versions. So it's important to have. Just your standard run-of-the-mill thing that you could download is not going to protect your computer or your company's information at the level that you need. You know, in Windows, you can access a screen that looks something like this. It'll show you that you've got all of the threats are managed and that they're up to date with that green check mark. And if it wasn't up to date, there would be a red X in those spots. So, we also recommend, you know, and here's that paid version. You know, Sophos is a company that we partner with that does a great job, artificial learning, machine learning technology in their Intercept X product. It's a great product. We really stand behind that, and so something like that is one that you'd want to have on your home network. Uninstalling unnecessary software is something you'll want to do as well. Get rid of that unutilized software. You know, if you don't use it, if it's been 6 months or a year and you just don't know the last time that you've used it, and you don't really know why it's there, good idea to get rid of that stuff. A lot of times this stuff just comes with your new computer. You don't really know what it is, and you're not real sure if you should delete it if it has to do with how your computer operates. You know, certainly let us know or ask someone at in your IT department if that's a program that needs to be on your computer. If you're not using it, I would say get rid of them. You know, in this information, or in this instance, there's one here that's called Blue Jeans that I would get rid of. Don't need that one. And then this communicator one, we could get rid of both of those. A real important thing when it comes to working remotely is making sure that you've got a secure tunnel back to your office to protect your information. So if you're working remotely, you want to have something called a VPN, or that virtual private network. And maybe you've heard about these and what these are. These are essential. It creates that private tunnel through the internet for your computer to access your company's resources when you're not on site. It's especially important if you're on a public Wi-Fi or something of that nature. You always want to be using a VPN, but certainly at home as well. That makes sure that no one else is going to see that traffic back and forth, and you're definitely going to want to have something like that in place. And if you don't, ask your company about that, or someone at your IT professional. You'll see a screen similar to this where you can log on to it and you can connect. And then once you're done for the day, you can always log off of it and disconnect. So logging on and logging off, I would say you should have as part of your daily workflow. First thing you do in the morning, once you get your computer, connect to that VPN, and then maybe before you're done for the day, just disconnect. So turning off automatic Wi-Fi is another good practice. If our computers are going to want to search for the strongest signal. So if you have to use Wi-Fi, make sure that you are connecting to the proper secure wireless signal. And if you don't have, if you have the option, I would always say to connect with the hardwired Ethernet line. That's going to be the most reliable and safest connection. But if you have to connect to a wireless signal, you want to make sure that you're choosing the proper one, that it's secure, and that you're connecting to that one. And another thing too, we talked about VPNs. Even though that's that private safe tunnel, don't ever connect a VPN even to one of those public, non-password protected, unsecured wireless signals. You always want to have a signal that's secure, and the one that that you've set up and that's reliable. So as we're working at home, you want to separate your network, having everything separate if you can. And that includes the network itself. So you want to, for all of the trusted computers that are on your network that have access, they're going to be using the VPN, you're going to be accessing company data. You want to set up a separate SSID for those things, and those are going to be the trusted. Those are going to be the trusted computers on the network. And let's just say, we all have people that come to our homes that want to just have access to the internet for whatever reason to log on. You can create a separate network for guests, and they can log on to that, and that'll just give them basic internet and access that way. So like I talked about, we want to have everything separate, but if we don't have the ability to separate our computers and our technology, where let's say we've just got the one computer in our home office that other family members or things like that need to use, then we certainly want to create a separate user profile within that computer. And what that does is it only gives access to the users on that computer for certain things. And you can even go in and set up the profiles and as the administrator for the preferences for children or parental controls or all that stuff. So highly encourage that sort of thing if you have to use the same computer for work and for personal. So installing extensions that you don't need, like let's just say you've got a Chrome browser and you download those extensions on there, and those just kind of sit there. Real similar to apps and programs on your computer. Your browser can also have extensions on them, so it's a good idea to get rid of those whenever you can. Google Chrome I read it. Well, this is an article that talks about it and how those extensions can be exploited, especially if they're old and they've got vulnerabilities. Those could potentially be a way that someone could gain access to your information. Those extensions that were created long ago, on the Google Chrome, they may have even been sold on the dark web or just no longer supported. So good idea to get rid of those whenever you can. And here's a screen that you can go into from the browser, and you can see those extensions, and you can just real easily remove those. When it comes to your browsers, you want to have the most secure browser you can, and your default browser, like your Internet Explorer on the PC or Safari for the Mac, are not going to be your best options. You want to use something like Google Chrome or Firefox. They've just inherently have more security features built into them, and we would recommend those. Make sure you've got those also selected as your default browser, so that if you click on a link and you're going to somewhere on the internet, that those are going to be the options that you're going to choose first. And here's a little illustration how you can do that. We're Google Chrome, and you can just choose the app and set that as the default browser. Same thing on the Mac computers. I labeled this one Click Smart. I probably could have called it a whole bunch of other things, because we do a lot of dumb things sometimes on the internet, and we get fooled into clicking on things that after we click, we may realize we made a mistake. But the key here is to make sure that you know what you're clicking on, and don't take anything for granted when you're working at home, especially with company data. You're going to be tempted to mix in personal computing along with your work duties, on the same computer. It could be a music application or a video or something, maybe a spouse or one of your children sent to you. So just make sure that if you can have time to do that separately outside of work, just because we don't know all the time what those things may be, and they could be a way designed to trick us. So as we might see a news article that has something about coronavirus, and we're going to say, oh, we think we really want to learn about that. That's going to be something that you want to be very careful with, and make sure that you're clicking on the right thing. You can even hover over the links to make sure that the link looks good. And if you have any questions on that, certainly talk to someone at your office or anyone that knows a little bit more about this maybe than you. So, and with the reason that this is becoming so prevalent is that these hackers know that you're going to be working from home, and you're not going to have the protection, most likely, of a good firewall that's going to filter that information. So things really certainly to be aware of. Backing up your data is important. So let's just say someone were to you were to get ransomware on your computer, you want to be able to have some sort of a backup in place. And there's really two ways of backing that data up. You've got your file level backup, and then you've got your image level backup. File level is just going to basically make a copy of the document, whether it's a photo or a file, something like that, and you can work, and those will just back up to something like Dropbox or your Google Drive or OneDrive, something of that nature. Now your image level takes an entire picture of your computer or your hard disk, and it saves all your settings, it saves everything, and it makes incremental changes as you make those changes during the day. So if something were to happen, an image level backup is going to be your best option. It's going to basically restore your computer to the way it was before you were to get some sort of a ransomware or anything like that. It's also important to note that I mentioned Dropbox and Google Drive. Ransomware can also encrypt that information. So even though it's in the cloud, ransomware can encrypt cloud data if it has access through your computer. So also be aware of that.
I would say there's probably no more embarrassing moment than realizing that you got ransomware on your local computer and it encrypted all the data on the network for all the rest of the users who did not get ransomware. Yeah. So it's certainly something to be aware of and be cautious with. Realize that anything that you have permissions to access can be impacted by ransomware. And ransomware right now is the #1 malware that we're trying to protect our clients against, because it is rampant, and the numbers around the amount of time, data, and money lost over ransomware are staggering. So definitely be aware of that.
And I think there's that misnomer where if they've got things backed up in the cloud, that whether it's Google or Dropbox, that they've got their own big security that's protecting their data, so that if their computer were to get a virus or something on it, that at least they'll have that, and that's just not the case. We've talked about this, and there's plenty of cases where we've seen that data that's gotten encrypted, and unfortunately, if that happens and that's your only way of if that's your only level of backup, yeah, that puts more pressure on you to have to pay that ransom, which we don't want to have to do. All right, time for another poll. Let's take this one here. Okay. What we want to do is, all right. So what % of companies without a disaster recovery backup plan who suffer a major disaster are out of business within 1 year? So I'll give you guys all a second to go ahead and take the little survey here. And this is one of those ones that does have a right answer. Okay. Looks like there's a couple more coming in. All right. We're going to end the poll. Wow, you guys know your stuff. You picked the high number and you were right. 93%. That's a big number. So if you just think about that, out of business within a year if you get hit with the ransomware, that's cause for concern. Believe me, you guys, you don't want to deal with this on the backside. You're much better to be proactive with the stuff, which is why when we decided to do a webinar, this is what we wanted to talk about, the importance of protecting your company data. Okay, moving along. So when you're in your home office, always, even if it's your home, having physical access to your computer, you want to make sure that that's secure. I use a Windows computer, and I just hit that Windows and the lock button when I step away. At SAF, we've got a policy that even if we did not do that, the screen times out and it locks automatically after 5 minutes. So your company information that's on your computer, you certainly don't want to just be viewable to anyone that walks up to your computer. So it's always a good idea to lock your screen. And what's private at work should be really considered private when you're at home. So getting towards the end here, I want to talk about a few very, very important things. Possibly the two most important things are coming up here, and it's going to be has to do with passwords and multi-factor authentication. It's important to use a password manager, something like Password Boss, or I use LastPass. Our director of IT, Dennis, he also uses LastPass. And multi-factor authentication, where you've got that second way to authenticate when you sign on. If you have both of these things, the chances of somebody breaching your security are quite low. The password manager is going to keep your passwords, and they're going to keep it safe. The best thing about it is that it's easier to use than having to the option of writing things down on a piece of paper or putting them in an Excel file on your computer. Use those password managers. That's going to be the most safest, easiest way to keep your passwords, and allows you to change them. It remembers them. It populates those fields when you're on a website, and certainly something you want to use. A lot of times default web browsers will have an option of saving passwords. Just go ahead and you can take that option off, as this screen right here shows. You can go ahead and opt it to save or not save. So you want to uncheck that and have your password manager save that information. This would be an example of what having a password manager would look like, where you've got a master password and then all of your other passwords are kept within there. And this master password is kept with a form of multi-factor authentication. So no one else can sign into this unless they have the ability to multi-factor authenticate. And that's what makes them more safe. And on to multi-factor authentication. This is the other critical piece. Your credentials are all going to are very important. If it's and what it does is it verifies your credentials with a facial recognition, a fingerprint, or even a PIN number that you enter. Most of us have experienced some kind of a multi-factor authentication. If you've ever gotten a text on your phone when you've logged into a secure website, or a retailer asks to see your driver's license for a purchase, or you try to get cash out of a cash machine, entering that PIN number, those are all ways of multi-factor authentication, and it's something we want to use on our technology. Final poll for the day. Okay, which of these do you currently use while working at home? A password keeper tool, multi-factor authentication, both 1 and 2, or you're currently not using either 1 or 2. Which is the wrong answer. I'm going to tell you, if you're not using either 1 or 2, we got to change that. Okay, just another few seconds. Okay, and here's our results on that. We've got some people using either, and then we've got some other people that are using both. Now, the folks that are using 1 and 2, that's going to be your best option. If you're using one or the other, just using that password manager or the multi-factor authentication, that's good, and I'm glad to hear that. I would say going forward, use them both. It's only going to protect things at a higher level. Okay, so we want to review our remote technology. So if you don't have the ability to know, what all the safeguards that are on your computer, be sure to ask your IT professional. Talk to someone that knows what technology that you're using, and you can even ask us at SAF. I mean, we can give you a good little rundown by just basically looking at what you're using at home and telling us if that's going to be a safe option or not. Remember, these things we talked about today are really the basic levels, and keeping your company's information safe is something that we all want to do. And so be sure to ask the questions to make sure that data is safe. So getting towards the end, key takeaways. I certainly want to make sure that you know that to keep the company data and your personal information separate. Remote security is just as important at home as it is at your work office. Be aware that you are more at risk now than ever before due to the COVID-19 and working from home. Always use that password manager and multi-factor authentication. Don't take the risk of having inadequate home security at home. And we're all in this together. And SAF has got your back. We've gone through this just like you have, and we've talked to a lot of companies that are currently going through it. And we want to make sure that we're a resource for you if you have any questions or anything of that nature. So feel free to reach out. And, with that, I want to say thanks. And if you have any questions, we're going to be here for a Q&A portion. And we just want to reiterate that we are here to help. A lot of challenges with the COVID-19 and questions and things of that nature. So with that, definitely want to open it up to questions for Antonio and that you might have for Antonio and I.
Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate that. So it looks like we do have a few questions. Let's go ahead and one of the questions we'll answer live is, does a VPN slow your internet connection down? There is some overhead associated with using a VPN connection. It does encrypt packets and make it so that people can't sniff your streams and pull information out. But I would say the pros certainly outweigh the cons of having a VPN. You definitely want to be on a tunnel if possible. If your employer is offering a VPN solution, please VPN into that network. If you need to purchase a third-party VPN solution, you can do that also. But for sure, you want to use that connection if you have the ability to do that. The slowness, it'll barely be noticeable. There's very few users that would notice a slowed down network due to a VPN.
Yeah, really the advantage that a VPN gives you and that safety and security would far outweigh any incremental slowness or latency that you might see, I'd say.
Awesome. Okay. We also have another question. Which wireless network should I use, the 5 gigahertz or the 2.4 gigahertz? That's a good question. A lot of people ask that. Definitely it depends, of course, right? That's always the answer. Well, it depends. So for a 5 gigahertz network, that's faster. So ideally, if you have the ability to get on the 5 gigahertz, you want to join that first because it's going to give you the best performance and best throughput. But 2.4 gigahertz, it operates better over longer distances. So you might see, well, I only see the 2.4 on my patio, but I can see the 5 gigahertz in my home. And that's because the 2.4 gigahertz frequency allows you to go through walls and glass a lot easier. So it just depends. If you can get on 5 gigahertz, definitely go on that first. If 2.4 gigahertz is the only thing that's available, then you would go ahead and jump on that. I think a more important than the channels, I would say, would probably be the encryption protocol, authentication protocol you're using. So WEP and WPA, don't want to use those. Now you want to use things that are going to be WPA2 as the authentication mechanism, and actually there's a standard for WPA3 coming out. So make sure you're using the highest level authentication and encryption package you can get on your wireless. If it says it's unsecured, do not log on to it. It's wide open and someone can literally use your computer to get to other computers, or they can hack into your computer, especially if it isn't patched or if it doesn't have a up-to-date antivirus or malware protection on it.
Yeah, that's bad.
So I think those are all the questions that I have in the list that were relevant there.
Okay, great. Well, super. Well, I'm happy to have hopefully gotten some information to you guys that you can use while you're working from home. And again, I've said it before, but we're here to help. And if there's any questions you have, if it's something we can just answer on the phone or just something you're not quite sure on, give us a call at SAF. We're eager to help, and we just want to make sure that you know that we're there for you. So
awesome. Thanks for hopping on, everyone. We appreciate your time today. Thanks
Antonio, and thanks everyone else. Have a great day.
Great. Bye.
All right, bye.